Hello everyone, it is your host Seth the Programmer, and today we're actually going to be going over Goku vs. Superman in 2019. I know it's been many years since I even remotely talked about it when it was concerning like the death battles that were still going on that were popular, and I made the Goku vs. Superman 1 and 2 death battle debunks, but in those videos I never actually talked about who I really thought would win. I just talked about what I thought was displeasing about the video, but that was years ago. Obviously, arguments have changed, and so has my opinion, actually. So I thought not only would I give you the answer, but I would also give you a new and clear-cut meta on the topic. So without further ado, let's get started after this sponsor. And yes, we've been sponsored today, and please at least just listen to it. It really does support the channel, so thank you. This video is brought to you by the ambitious mobile RPG Raid: Shadow Legends. Mobile RPGs are taking the world by storm. This one is very special. Raid has a very interesting storyline, incredible graphics for a mobile game, and awesome character designs. There's a PvP mode and a really awesome rewards program that benefits new players because you get a new daily reward the first 90 days that you're playing the game. The game encourages both tactical and grinding gameplay. You have various champions to choose from. Gaelic is my personal favorite, but don't just take my word for it. Check out the reviews over on the Play Store. More than 200,000 reviews, almost a perfect score. If you want to join in on the action with a special advantage, click the link down below and you get a 50,000 silver and a free epic champion as part of the new player program to start your journey. Also guys, the clan you can see on the screen is mine, so if you want to join, be quick, there's limited spots. Thanks again for the sponsorship, Raid: Shadow Legends. I've gone over debunks for this particular matchup before in the past, but I've never told you, the people, what I actually think of Superman versus Goku in my own words. Usually I have a collaborator, or I really don't give an answer, I just talk about certain aspects of the scaling, and the most popular of these being the video in response to Death Battle's 2 versions of the fight. A lot of people criticize me because I never actually answered the question, and many years have passed, as I said before, so I thought I'd finally go out of my way and explain how I think it would go down. Maybe if someone was to threaten me in real life and force me to answer the question, this is what I would say. Obviously, since years have passed, so have metas and the arguments concerning Superman and Goku have changed, but I promise you that Death Battle still did the topic extremely amateurish and dirty. Ben Singer even went as far as to say recently that the Dragon Ball universe was still only 4 galaxies in size in 2019, when we've literally seen Super Shenron engulfing dozens of galaxies on screen. Or the infamous Book of Infinite Pages feat, which is actually downplayed as well. The book that Ultraman is holding actually contains the fate and storyline of an archetypal, outerversal macrocosm way beyond any dimension feat. Superman and Ultraman were, however, amped during these events, and so his base does not scale. I'll specifically be using Superman's most popular variant, Post-Crisis, here, rather than the weird composite mishmash Superman that's Death Battle used, and we'll be pitting him up against Dragon Ball Super Goku anime version. I also won't be using any of the crazy amps that Superman was given during his run, just his base form. Let's start with some strength scaling. A lot of Superman's detractors seem to think that he peaks at only the ability to bust solar systems, which kind of baffles me because of the ridiculous amount of universal scaling that applies to the Man of Steel. He's fought Nebula Man, an actual living universe, on more than one occasion. He's tussled with Golden Age Superman, and in their fight, both of their universes were in danger of being destroyed. Golden Age himself was able to finish off the Anti-Monitor, a villain capable of eating entire universes, and could even tank an attack from him that channeled the entire antimatter universe into one blast. He had an extended fight with 30th Century Mordru, a being that was stated to have the magical power of a universe, and Aztec's 4D energy had no effect on the Man of Steel whatsoever. This is only the tip of the iceberg as well. In total, there are easily over this many universal feats for Superman. Could you even count them all? That's around 50 feats, and it's not even all the ones I could dig up. Now, here's how many there are for a solar system level Superman. Yeah, clearly nowhere near the same amount. Not including the fact that many of these solar system level feats are pretty easily debunked as well. For instance, Alan Scott's death being capable of destroying the solar system. Not only is Alan Scott fodder to Superman, but this is the most casual feat possible for Alan, as it's literally just an accidental result of his death, not an attempt to actually cause harm to the system. Not to mention that the Green Lantern rings were stated to be extra dimensional by Lex Luthor, or how the infinite mass punch, which some calcs have naively put at solar system level, not only is this punch literally referenced as having infinite mass by Jenny Ognat, it is capable of performing a similar feat that was threatening the entire universe as well. So when it comes to consistency, there's a way higher preponderance of evidence going towards a universal post-Crisis Superman, especially when you take into account his scaling to Golden Age Superman and Silver Age Superman, who have their own set of universal feats that aren't even described here. When it comes to power, on the other hand of this fight, Goku has been heavily debated about for the last half a decade. But as Dragon Ball Super went on, the scale of characters increased and debates hit their peak, people gradually began to accept certain averages for Goku's scale, possibly thanks to yours truly. That debated scale was whether or not Goku was capable of destroying the living world universe. I feel as though most of this has been oversaturated and many people get this by now, especially if they've been at this for a long time. But for the sake of the people who are just here to watch the fireworks or who are new, I'll explain. Most people know the feat of Goku clashing fists with Beerus to the point that the entire Universe 7 macrocosm, which features multiple universe-sized bodies within it, at absolute risk of annihilation, being reduced to non-existence by these two simply punching each other. However, this actually doesn't compare to later feats in Dragon Ball Super, as obviously this is Goku's first experience with his god powers and he has far surpassed them since. In fact, even lesser characters like Enraged Buuhan, Super Buu, Gohan, and Zoroark were capable of tearing apart space so much that he was going to crush the entire living universe with alternate dimensions with his technique, which is called Outside Space, or an amped Vice Shout technique, and he's just a Buu Saga character that was getting bullied by a simple Super Saiyan Potara fusion that Goku said would stand no chance against heavily suppressed Beerus, let alone a Super Saiyan God Goku, which Goku was unsure could beat him at the time, and was even willing to suppress his power against Beerus due to this. Basically, Goku didn't think Vegito stood a chance even with a time skip, however he was unsure if his god form could. Later in Super, we get characters that fight that same Potara fusion but with years of more preparation, training, and god powers. Fusion Zamasu. Fusion Zamasu then ends up losing and disintegrates into an astral form called Infinite Zamasu, which is essentially Zamasu fusing himself with the very fabric of the universe, its space-time, and even going to other universes and timelines throughout the multiverses and becoming one with it. And while Goku mentions that he might have been able to do something if he had a Senzu Bean at the time, they resort to the Zeno button, which simply annihilates the timeline, at least in the manga. In the anime, it's a bit more ambiguous, but regardless, Zeno is not that important for scaling Goku. After this, during the Tournament of Power, Goku has to deal with Jiren, who is stated in numerous guides to be stronger than a God of Destruction, with only more archaic and pre-tournament guides saying otherwise. Goku is told that there's a mortal who is stronger than Gods of Destruction, and Whis even mocks Beerus for saying the mortal is stronger than a god who beat Beerus in physical strength. Now, while this may not be the same in combat, Goku is now looking for this figure who he thinks is Jiren, as does everyone else in the tournament, including the other gods. Goku becomes overconfident and creates a Super Spirit Bomb, thinking he'll be more than enough to beat Jiren. This is despite the fact that he recently saw Beerus and Champa fighting and heard Vados and Whis say that it would bring about the absolute annihilation of both Universe 6 and 7. Now, while you could argue this is more of a rule thing for the gods, Goku would not know those particulars. Regardless, Jiren bounces the bomb back with a glare in which it's stated by the Supreme Kai that Jiren is the strongest enemy he's ever seen, even stronger than Infinite Zamasu, who he was there to witness. Goku then goes into the Omen of Ultra Instinct, and both he and Jiren can shake the entirety of the infinite world of Void. Goku would then go on to get many increases in strength, more than likely thousands of times, as I described in my Master Ultra Instinct video, which I will link here, and end up defeating a Jiren who had surpassed his limits beyond anything he showed before. This not only makes Goku universal, but many calibers higher into it. Some would argue this by definition would be a form of multiversal levels, although multiversal has a contentious definition that many people don't actually agree on. So in this case, just consider Goku able to outscale things who can destroy multiple universes / time spaces, such as the Universe 7 macrocosm, and gets many amps beyond that. On to speed, let's start with the Dragon Ball side of things first, since we let Superman go for strength last time. Now, for you Dispo downplaying Troglodytes, we absolutely have to start off with the light speed arguments that have spread like a miasma over this community the past few years. People tend to get things twisted with Dispo simply because of some translation issues, the first being the famous super maximum light speed mode that he uses later on. However, the real translation of this is actually just super speed mode. And even in the anime, when they talk about his speed, they always just say Dispo is faster than the speed of light. Even if you wanted to downplay this again and say that them saying he surpassed Light was supposed to be impressive, you could argue that Light in Dragon Ball is simply faster than it is in real life. And this is possible due to things like the Planck constant. The Planck constant is a physical constant that relates to the energy of the photon relative to its frequency. If there wasn't anything limiting the black body radiation of particles, temperatures could go on to infinity with no restriction, but it's not. It happens to be limited by a constant, which is the Planck constant. If this variable was even slightly different, it would directly affect the length of the Planck distance, which would in turn increase the maximum speed of light. This could explain how Piccolo at the very beginning of the series could hit a moon that Toriyama himself states is over 380,000 kilometers away in a few seconds, and then have numerous people get thousands to millions of times faster as the series goes on and not reach the speed of light within the Dragon Ball verse, but still could be considered light speed in our own universe. This would also explain why the light from Goku and Beerus' clash reached outside the universe in mere seconds. Long story short, Dispo was stated faster than light to begin with, and light doesn't even operate at the same speed in Dragon Ball as it does in real life. For the rest of the video, when we say faster than light, we will be using real life measurements of light, however, which is 670 million miles per hour plus. On the low end, we have Buu casually destroying an entire galaxy on screen, which the Supreme Kai states is only in a few years. Even if it was to encompass thousands of years, it should easily hit billions of times the speed of light due to the sheer size of a galaxy, which usually are over 100,000 light years along, let alone their volume. Even our own estimations of the size of the Milky Way are constantly shown to be too low, with recent studies suggesting it's several times larger than we ever thought it was. This isn't something that would probably apply to most galaxies, it is something to note. Whis in the anime was capable of traveling across the entire universe in the time it takes to watch an episode of Era Manga Sensei or wherever you degenerates are into these days. Later, he even arguably covers the same distance at a far greater speed, reaching his destination in a matter of seconds. The latter of these two time frames reaches 72 quadrillion times the speed of light. Sadly, this doesn't come close to our caped friend Superman here. Even using standard speed feats, Superman comes in at speeds ludicrously faster than the speed of light. Post-Crisis scales to Green Lanterns that could casually travel across the DC universe, which is 100 trillion light years wide, in 10 hours, which comes in at 87 quadrillion times the speed of light. At one point, he even flew throughout the entire universe, destroying reality-blitzing missiles before a human heart could beat a single time, which comes out to a ridiculously high speed of 1.85 sextillion times the speed of light. And yes, that's actually a number. I tried to come up with something to compare this to so you guys could actually understand how big these nerdy values are, but this number was just so massive that I couldn't compare it to actually anything. Most calculators can't even display this number without using scientific notation. The Flash, who is often cited to have the fastest speed feat of running across the universe in less than a Planck instant itself, is quintillions of times slower than what Superman did in this feat. Not to say that Superman is faster than the Flash or have that debate, just saying that that feat, which is often considered extremely quick, is quintillions of times slower. With their stats on the table, we can now go over what would happen if they were to actually fight. In the stats, we clearly outlined that while Goku is more powerful, Superman is a lot faster. Therefore, we have to be specific on who would win with their skill set and why, because there is a difference in what they're actually good at. Although Superman is no slouch when it comes to martial arts and other skills, for instance Turquoise Rao, Goku, however, has a life dedicated to them and has more experience fighting against opponents of comparable strength to himself. You could also consider the Turquoise Rao states to be an amp of sorts as well, which I disqualified at the start of the video. So Goku has this slight edge in skill. The Hakai, even if we said Goku had access to it, would be completely useless as Superman has resisted Darkseid's Omega Beams, which are stated to be termination itself on numerous occasions. The Mafuba ceiling would similarly be ineffective as Superman has resisted the ceiling effects of the Source Wall, which could even entrap beings like Darkseid and Perpetua. Screw-Attack once tried to say that the Power Pole would work on Superman due to his weakness to magic, but Superman isn't actually weak to magic at all, he just isn't invulnerable to it. He's fought Mordru, a being with an entire universe of magic at his disposal, as mentioned prior, and has survived magic attacks on this level numerous times before against other characters. Another argument that comes up a lot is the idea that Goku could instant transmission Superman to a red sun and then be done with it. However, the Man of Steel has resisted this too, once taking enough anti-sunlight to vaporize half a galaxy, and flying through a red sun with Golden Age Superman to collide into Mogo, the living planet. A Senzu Bean would be a one-time heal that could keep Goku going if he had to, but all of this is ultimately futile. Superman is ridiculously faster to the point where Goku has no hope of ever actually hitting him. Even the speed scaling I presented for Superman already is a horrendous downplay, as throughout his numerous appearances, Superman has demonstrated enough speed to travel backwards in time. So even if we were generous and gave Goku his bogus speed scaling to hits, time skip, or other feats, he would still be slower. Moving in 0 time is impressive, but Superman moves in negative seconds and arrives before he even left. Even if you argue that Goku is so durable that Superman could never hurt him, Goku isn't winning the war of attrition against Superman's actually limitless stamina. Even in some weird scenario where the fight takes billions of years, which is impossible for Goku, and literally all the stars in the universe wink out, Superman would still be fighting at peak performance and could just go to a different timeline for more stars, although he doesn't actually even need them. The Man of Tomorrow has numerous other ways to win this fight. On top of that, he could use his time-traveling capabilities to send Goku to the beginning or end of time. He once punched Darkseid so hard that he was launched through a boom tube, taking him to the Source Wall, which is an outer-versal distance, something Goku has no hope of returning from. And Goku would know all of this before the first punch was even thrown. Upon meeting Bloodshot, Superman instantly calculated the ballistics of every single bullet ever fired by him. He's also found weaknesses in infinitely programmable, self-repairing spaceships, and has reconstructed extra-dimensional machines from memory alone. Superman would look at Goku once and know everything about him, and with his immense speed could easily find some way to win, even if he can't hurt him at the time. In the end, Goku is more powerful, but Superman is faster, has way more stamina, intelligence, and abilities to win the battle. This makes sense. Superman is a character that has had thousands of issues and resides in an insanely convoluted and oversaturated verse with weird concepts that can go over everything you can almost imagine, written by numerous writers, whereas Goku is pretty much just one guy with one writer with a pretty linear progression. It makes sense that Superman would be so much more intricate and busted, and Goku would be so linear, as I said, as the hopes and desires of numerous writers clash together to make this one Superman. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. A big shout out to Webcam Parrot for actually having the stamina to read through thousands of Superman issues and help with this video on his channel. He's currently making a much more verbose and targeted scaling of Post-Crisis that isn't bound by time limitations having to compare to another character. And otherwise, I have Batman vs. Kira down below. A lot of people are liking that, and it goes into similar themes as I described in this video. I think anime versus comics is always fun to talk about. Also, there is the Mastered Ultra Instinct video where I talked about thousands of times stronger Goku got in just 40 minutes in the Tournament of Power. And other than that, till next time.